Chunya Munga, welcome back. Tricky second episode. Thank you so much for coming back on and talking to me. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Jez?
I'm well. I'm very well. Now you're feeling like a 40-year-old man at the moment, aren't you, with a bad back?
Yeah. It's actually a lot better now than it was. But I pulled myself out of a scrum probably about 2 weeks ago, and then lay on my bed for about a week in agony. But no, they fix you up and give you bits and bobs that you need to do, and yeah. So I'm on the mend now. Hopefully, be playing in the next week or so. So fingers crossed.
I think nothing to be worried about. It's just a little tweak, is it?
Yeah, I think it's just it's a bump in the road, a little bit of sport wear and tear. So hopefully nothing too bad. Yeah, should be all right.
Playing these sort of games, rugby games, you're going to get these, aren't you? You're going to get these injuries backs, I suppose. You may remember last time I asked you what your 3 core values were. So rather than me make you tell them again, I'm going to tell you what they were. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you can remember. And you can tell me whether you think they're still right, because all the kids you sort of work within in different schools, we ask to think about this, but we also tell them that they can change at any point. So I'd be interested to know whether they've changed in the last few months. So yours were enjoyment, making sure you always enjoy everything you do, being yourself and being authentic. So you talked about wearing what you want, listening to whatever music you wanted to without, being ashamed of any of it. And making those that love you proud.
Yeah, I'll probably say that they're pretty much the same. Hasn't really changed now.
And that's good, isn't it? And that's probably quite interesting because, again, I don't think, tell me if I'm wrong, you're the sort of person that wakes up and looks at your values on a wall and says, I'm going to live my life by these every day. Is that something that is conscious in your mind, or is it still not, and you just kind of get up and you do the best you can still and you work hard, or are you becoming more conscious of these things as you get older?
Yeah, I think actually, funnily enough, not so that I have like values sort of stripped to my wall, but there's only one thing that I've got a little whiteboard downstairs that I kind of plan my week on, just different things. And I wrote something in there it wouldn't be great pidgin English, but it's the sort of the language my mum used to use when she spoke to her family and stuff. And it's just a little message that says sort of basically along the lines of, like, work hard so your mum never has to work, kind of thing. Just a little message like that. That's the only thing I've sort of kept. It's like in a little square, and my whiteboard has changed. I've rubbed everything up, but in that square on sort of the right-hand side, that's always stayed there. So I don't really have like values, but it might sound a bit sort of, cliche in the story of sort of like who I as I grew up, but that's one thing I've always kind of kept in there. So I wrote it like that in pidgin English because it was something a bit sort of more of the culture that I grew up in, and then it was a message that I feel is very aligned with me. So it's kind of why I do these things. And so it's not those values. Those values are probably very like important to me, but that is kind of a message I've always kept there, just because I think when things kind of got tough at points last year, now I actually think about it, that always stayed there in that little square. And even now, probably I've had it there 18 months, that board, and it's still stuck there, that one thing I still hasn't crossed that. So it's a bit even rubbed now, but
that massively, it really comes through that it's your third value, making those that love you proud. And obviously your mum is very much up there as one of those people. You talked a lot about her when we spoke last time. You said then when things got tough, are you able to say like, anything about that, or is it something that's
yeah, of course. So like last year I had like a major knee injury. I tore, I think, like a high grade 2 tear in my MCL, which was pretty tough. I'd done it before, like a tweak, sort of grade 1. That was like a 6-week recovery, but this was a just shy of 3-month thing. So that was quite tough. I've also now got a crooked finger, tore some tendons off in my finger. So now it's a little bit bent. That was kind of tough just because, again, it's one of those injuries where you see like you see old rugby boys have those kind of things. And that was just a bit tough. Not so much the injury itself, but actually just because it was in like a period where I had a good run of games. I was actually probably playing some of my best rugby yet. And then it just went, because I couldn't catch, couldn't grip the scrum, couldn't tackle, couldn't hit anything because couldn't really use my hand. That was probably some of my tougher times. And in those moments when you're kind of like, oh, this is rubbish, like you struggle to stay as positive when you're not playing compared to when you are. So that kind of message just kind of brings it back to kind of what are we doing here. And I think I spoke to you last time about, you know, me playing as if my younger self is watching. That's kind of something I've kept trying to do. But I've probably also thought now over the last 3 or 4 months, especially during pre-season, it was kind of like train like your younger self is watching, but work like your future self will thank you for what you did, kind of thing. So it's a very like internal dialogue of I am doing this for me, because like it's all about how far I think I can get myself to go. So
the thing, when you said that last time, that really stuck with me, and I've tried to actually do that in everything I'm doing. So I love trying new things. I've started doing kickboxing.
Yeah,
I'm not very good, and that actually what you said is really, because I watched a video of me doing it back the other day, and I watched it, I went, I am really rubbish at that. But then I thought about what you said, and I was like, it doesn't matter. Like you're trying something new, and you're having to go at something different. And
yeah, definitely.
I think that's really good. And that other bit you've put on the end is interesting, isn't it? That you've got to play with abandon, and you've got to play with, you know, enjoyment, but also in your sport particularly, you're already picking up injuries. You've obviously got to think a little bit about the long game as well, and you've got to look after yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like going back to that, sort of about the thing, because I remember even now when I was a kid, like just little things, and sometimes you get caught up. I don't know if it's the same for other boys, but sometimes you get caught up so much in trying to achieve big things that you don't appreciate maybe the little steps, and things like I remember when I was a kid, just because I was such a big kid, like just simple things like I couldn't play on the monkey bars, like couldn't do it because I couldn't hold myself up. And like now I get to the point where obviously like you don't even think about it, but like I can do like weighted chins, which sounds stupid, but as a kid I couldn't even pull myself on a bar. So it's like, if you know, that idea of play like your younger self is watching, like if me when I was 7, 8, 9, who couldn't get himself up on a monkey bar because he was so heavy, could see me now like pulling myself up a bar like for fun as exercise just to do it, and you don't even think, yeah, he'd be pretty shocked. So yeah, sometimes not getting caught up in the big things of, oh, like I've got to play in cool stadiums, or I've got to play in front of crowds, or those have been great experiences, but even the day-to-day things like that I'd never thought I'd be able to do. Yeah, just little things like that.
Take us briefly from chubby 11-year-old Chunya to 15-year-old Chunya battling with his mum on protein shakes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, professional London Irish Hulk of a man Chunya. Like, can you do that in like? Can you briefly go through that process?
Yeah. So from 11, probably in a short space to about 15, was just me playing as you all did as a kid, like me just playing rugby growing up for fun, not thinking anything of it. Like I knew I was a bit bigger than everyone else, but that was about it. Just kind of had a bit of fun, played with my mates, and then 15. I was probably in the county setup at Berkshire, and then as well as my club, and then from there. The county sort of filtered you into an academy based on the catchment area. Moved into the Bronze Academy at London Irish, and then from there progressed. So I did a year in the Bronze Academy, another year in the Silver Academy at sort of 16, and then when I hit 17, 18, you move into what's called the Gold Academy, so basically sixth form boys. I might have said this last time as well, but I even remember thinking when I was 17, I didn't really think I was any good. And I remember I got a bit of a confidence boost because I was 17 and I got an email. I remember where I was in school. I was in the geography block, and I got an email saying, oh, Chuny's been invited to do England under 17s training. And I was like, what, me? Me. And so then from there, I was like, okay, cool. I went there, met a load of boys from all over the country who also played academies. I thought, right, let's give this a go. Gave it a go in my first year, year 12, then played my last year, year 13 of like academy school rugby, and then got offered a deal at London Irish Senior Academy. Got offered a 2-year contract, and then, yeah, it's kind of got me to where I am. That's a really quick snapshot. And now, 22-year-old, hopefully trying to get myself certified into the team, but it's been a cool journey to be a homegrown boy as well. Like there's quite a few of us now, which is really good, but it's quite cool to have seen a lot of boys who are older than me who you kind of looked up to, and now they're boys who are in your team. Yeah, it's quite cool, especially from a homegrown kid.
You're not the new fresh academy boy now, are you? You're not, you know, do you feel different? Has imposter syndrome sort of gone, and do you feel very much like you are a professional, genuinely professional rugby player? You're meant to be here.
I'd say I definitely feel like I know a bit more about myself now. I know really what I need to hammer home in terms of like my work-ons and improvements, but I've also kind of gained an understanding of who I am probably as a person and a player. You learn a lot more from being around the boys. Like we had a meeting the other day, team meeting for players, and they said, look, lads, the reality is we get a 5-week holiday, maybe 2 weeks in season, maybe 3 weeks bye week. So strap in because we've got 45 weeks together. So you learn a lot by being with the guys around you. But I feel like now, especially because there's quite a few boys who I've known for a few years now and I've played together with, and we've had some new guys come in, but all similar sort of young age group. We're starting to, well, I've started to feel anyway more like, you know, it's starting to be, we're not just sort of the kids who are you know, seen and not heard anymore. I feel like we have an opportunity now to, provided we put the work in and try our best to be us that can try and achieve something here. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Are there new young kids that you're now seeing coming up that you're now looking at and going, I was you last year, and you're, you know, either taking them under your, you know, hopefully you're being nice to them?
Well, we've got a guy who, if you ask any forward who's probably been to the academy in my age group anyway, a guy called John Fisher, and he's very big on, he did it himself when he was a player. He's quite big on sort of the integration and like, I don't want to say mentoring, because I wouldn't say we really mentor them too much, but we just give them like hints and tips, stuff we might have missed when we were younger. So I got paired with another second row who's 18, 19, massive. He's like 6'9", this kid, he's huge. And it just kind of like, before he came in, we had a few maybe Zooms, a few phone calls, and just kind of sat down and said, look, this is what you might expect. This is what you might not expect, or this is what is probably going to happen when you get here, or these are experiences you might have, or like you're going to get shouted at and told you're a bit rubbish, but that is rugby. Like you just kind of get on with it. Because I remember even when we got there, like our first day or first week, sorry, we had a line-out session, and we got out there with the head forwards coach, and he just said, he looked at us and went, boys, you're going to be rubbish, but I don't care. I just want you to try hard. And obviously all of us with our like fresh out of school egos are like, oh, we're hot stuff, you know, we thought we were it. And he literally just said, look, you're going to be rubbish. So don't be disheartened, because I'm going to tell you now, you are going to be poor. So yeah, it's just things like that now we're kind of able to maybe share with those boys who are a bit younger. And a few of the other guys in my sort of age group have done the same for maybe younger back rowers or front rowers, especially. I think front row is probably a real position where you need help. I've never played front row, but I look at the work that one of my mates, who's a tight head, the work he does, it's like you need help, you need it. So yeah.
The thing that you said, again, going back to sort of the mindset side of trying to play like only your 12-year-old self was watching in the stand, but then also flipping that and saying, you know, I think you said play like you're, you know, playing for yourself in the future as well. Is that, I was thinking about that, and I know you're not a big cricket fan, even though I tried to get you to play cricket a few times. Don't know whether you followed like the test team, but they brought in Brendan McCullum, Kiwi, and Ben Stokes, right, as captain and coach. And test cricket is something that is quite tricky to get to people into, because it's perceived as being boring, it's slow, it's 5 days. And what they've tried to do is really similar to what you said. They've said, go out and be yourself. They're based at your values. Be yourself, be authentic, play the way you want to play, paint your own canvas, and play a bit like you said, just play like it's only you, play for yourself. Don't play the way that everyone else wants you to play. And they got slammed a little bit, but actually they've come through and won, I think, 6 or 7 test matches in a row. And now they're starting, obviously, you know what the media's like. Now they're saying, oh, it's fantastic to see this.
Amazing,
you know? I was wondering whether that's something that you could pick up on again, because are you going into this season, even though I know you've picked up an injury now, is that still at the forefront of your mind when you're talking to Psych Mike, your mindfulness psychology guru guy? Is that still the kind of the concept that we're looking at, or is it shifting a bit more and changing a bit more now as you're becoming a slightly older player?
I think I'm still it's weird because I've been very privileged to say that I've been able to play for the club on a few occasions, and probably a bit more than I think I thought initially when I came in. But I still do believe it's not I believe, I know I have so much to do. So I think now it's kind of, I understand now probably what's a bit more expected of me, and maybe what I think is my kind of player, my kind of strength. So I think psychologically when I go into things now, I want to try and play with a bit more freedom, but the honesty that comes with that is that when you listen to guys who have played 100 more games than me and 50 more international games and 60 more, you know what I mean? They tell you that the reason they can play with the freedom and it looks like they're playing with the freedom they have is because they've done the work. So, I mean, I'm not saying in next week I'm going to be there. It's not going to take me another year. It's not going to take me another 2, because we're talking about guys who have had 10 years of international experience. But what you can get some peace in is that sometimes we are so outcome based, and this is something I've learned probably from Mike and some of the sessions he runs, is sometimes we're very outcome based. Actually, you have to think about, what was my process, what did I set out to do? If I remember I had a point with him where I was saying, like, Mike, I don't want to make mistakes, and he said, that's rubbish. He was like, in a game, top quality players in every game will make around 7 mistakes. That's across all sport. So he was like, what makes you think you, as an unexperienced non-international, 3 years into your career, type 5 forward, is going to make less than 7 mistakes? What makes you think you're special? And that was like, okay, cool. So you kind of accept that, yes, things are going to go wrong, but rather than being always outcome based, what is the process? What can I do to minimize those things happening? Because they're going to happen, but what can I do to close that gap, close the gap, close the gap? Yeah.
That's really, I think what I'm taking from that is, you put it really well, is you've got to be really, you've got to have real intent and purpose in your training, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all well and good saying, oh, you know, play like with enjoyment and like, you know, only kids watching, but that's all well and good unless you're like, you know, making massive mistakes and not being picked and then not playing at the highest level. So you've got to put in the work, and if you put in the work physically and mentally, then that's when you go on the pitch and hopefully enter a state like Johnny Wilkinson. I don't know whether you've listened to any of his recent pods. Obviously very philosophical, very intellectual, interesting chap, and he calls it the flow. If you can get to that point where you put the work in, like you said, and that's when you experience flow in a game, that peak flow experience where you talked about it before, where you have to try and be in the moment as much as you can, and again, that, you know, that goes across all facets of life, doesn't it? If everyone can enjoy the process and the moments rather than constantly thinking about the work that you've done and the work ahead, that is obviously important as well, especially in your career. But it's that dual process of putting in work and then trying to enjoy the process of training and playing as well, and that's probably quite hard balance to strike.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, as I said, it's something I'm trying to probably learn from a mental side of things as well as a physical. But it is about not being always outcome driven. If I throw myself in at 100% and give everything to my skills in the week and try and nail my preparation and tick boxes I believe will prepare me for the game, if the game doesn't go as well as I would have liked it to, okay, cool, that's fine. But I know I've given everything towards the intent of trying to perform at my best. So that's when you go, okay, cool, sometimes things just don't go your way, but you've given everything in terms of the process to try and get there. And it's something I'm still trying to learn. I haven't found probably an ironed on process just yet for me. I think I've got into a kind of rhythm and an idea of what it might look like, but I'm still probably searching for that sweet spot in terms of what my process might look like. Yeah.
I really like how you talk about outcome and process at youHQ and the work that we're doing with schools. We're trying to get students to set their own values and then goals align with those values. And often students will naturally set outcome goals, things like play rugby for England or get an A star in maths or, you know, whatever it is. And when we spoke before, you actually said, and I quote, numbers do not stimulate or motivate you. Do you have specific goals that you set now? Are they only process? Is there merit in some outcome-based goals? Like we spoke before, is one of the outcomes to play for the Lions? Is one of the outcomes to play X number of games? Or are you still quite focused on process goals so that you can get to the place you want to be?
I think No, I think I'll be kidding myself if I said I didn't want to play for England and I didn't want to play for the Lions. It's like if you are playing professional sport in any facet and you don't want to get to the top, I'd probably question, why you're there. However, it's not something I wake up every day and think about. It's like, I don't think yet I'm in a position with, my skills and experience to go, I want to play for England tomorrow. I haven't reached that point yet, but I do think that I'm in the point where I think, okay, cool. I'm working on these skills at the moment. How can I maximize myself and get there? And I think even so, like I've always kind of said, I remember sitting down probably when I was 18 and I first got here, and someone said to me, what is your goal? And I said, I want to be the best player I can be and find my ceiling. I just want to find my ceiling. Because I believe that, your ceiling can shift and change. And, I remember when I was probably 18, 19, my goal was to make my senior debut. And then, so you get to that ceiling. Okay, cool. My next goal was to play in the Premiership. Okay, cool. I got to that ceiling. My next game was to start in the Premiership. Okay, I hit that ceiling. And so before you realize it, rather than going, oh, I want to play for England, and you have to go from nothing where you're getting, sent on loan to maybe National 2 or National 1. And then you're looking at it like this. It was like, right, can I get in the team? Can I get to this bit? Can I get to this bit? Can I get to this bit? And look, listen, that's the way I see it for me. I think you've got to find a way that you can break this down for you. But for me personally, is if I can sit at the end of this and go, I tried everything. I gave it literally everything. If it didn't work out, I can be at peace. But I feel like you have to try and be as best as you can be. That's just the way I see it.
How do you know whether you're kidding yourself or whether you just have to have that self-belief? So for example, let's say you got to a point where you thought, well, this is my ceiling. London Irish first team is my ceiling. Yeah. Would you argue that, and I'm sure we talked about this before, that the best players just have the self-belief that there is almost no ceiling, so that England or that the Lions or whatever it is, is there a balance between being realistic and having the ultimate self-belief that you can be, the best player in the world?
I think for me, the realism comes day to day, and then your like astronomical dreams are at the end of this road. You don't know how long it's going to be, but like I believe that day to day is the chipping away. Are you chipping away day to day? Because I can only wake up one day and do as well as I can today on that day, if that makes sense. You can only be present. I can't do well tomorrow today. Like you can't do it. You can tee yourself up, i.e. in my world, that might be, have I practiced the skill? Have I eaten right? Have I recovered? Have I slept right? So it means I can try and do more tomorrow, but I can only do what I can do today. I can't play well on Saturday and training on a Monday. Can't do it. But I think like in order to maybe find your ceiling, or if you believe there is no ceiling, you just have to try and do it every day. Like that's what I think.
Chunya, you a routine? Like, are you routine? Do you get up? You've got your little whiteboard and you map up the week and your day. Do you have this? Do you believe in routine? Do you get up?
I do believe in. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say, do you go mobility, cold shower? Is it the same, or do you just kind of go with the flow a little bit and see how you feel?
No, it's a bit of a mix and match. So probably more, fun enough, on training days, I'm probably a bit more relaxed. So like on a training day, I'll know I need to stretch. So like for my back at the moment, I need to do a certain amount of mobility. Probably before that, I've got a bit of a dodgy ankle, so I'd probably try and get a bit there. So I do mobility, say like that. I would make sure in the gym I've done certain things. So if we have like a lower day, I've got activation I need to do for my knees because I'm big. I've got patellar issues at times. And then like I might have some catch pass skills I might want to do and some light jumping skills I want to do. But on a day where I'm training, for example, that will filter when I find the time. I won't go right 3:45, 4 o'clock. Whereas today, because we actually have no structure and it's an off day, like I wrote last night in my notes, like 8 o'clock wake up, 8:30 breakfast, 9:30 I was in my car, 9:50 I'd started my like extra weights I wanted to do, 11 I had my massage, 12, and then basically you're now one of my checkpoints. So after I finished I'm tidy in my bedroom for 40-45 minutes.
Did I get on the whiteboard?
You haven't actually made it on the whiteboard. No, you're on my
Ah.
notes today. I've done it on the notes on my phone, but
maybe
yeah. So
maybe we do one more. I'll get on the whiteboard and then I know.
yeah, maybe. But it's funny because you don't think about it, and you probably actually now, having just left teaching, would probably find that I've spent probably since I can remember, maybe since the age of 6, in routine. Like some guys, left school at 18 and went to uni, and they had a loose routine. Uni is kind of a loose routine, you do as and when. But I remember finishing my A-level maths exam, I went straight into pre-season, and since then I've been told when to have breakfast, when to gym, when to wait. And yeah, it might have only been 3.5 years of me doing it, but from school I've just been so conditioned. So I try and create a routine. Yeah, I try.
That is interesting, isn't it? And you're right. Like, pushing it back on me, I felt very similar in that I've left teaching, that routine's gone. And yeah, that lack of structure, you have to build that in, don't you, for yourself? I think sometimes because it just gives you that control back. And I think that it gives you that opportunity to be productive as well, which is good to hear. Look, mental health is something that we touched on last time. You always have struck me, and I think you agree, as someone with resilience, and you've got mental toughness, and you've got to in the career that you're forging for yourself. The more I do work with schools on this, the more there seems to be, they call it a mental health crisis, whether that's true or not. Very difficult one. What tips can you give young people that you've learned through all the resilience that you've built, especially playing a sport like rugby, where mental toughness is arguably as important, if not more important, than physical toughness? Can you give young people any sort of little sneak takeaway tips or advice that you've picked up along the way? I know mental health is not something that you've personally struggled with yourself, but is there anything that you've reflected on?
Yeah, I think from my own personal experiences, and now I can probably say I've never had long periods of suffering in terms of that psychological and mental side. So, it's quite lucky to say. But one thing I found, especially through school, and I think if I could say anything, if I could speak to my younger self, I'd do it in that way. Like, I understood maybe what I wanted to do, and I found myself a purpose. So I didn't think, I was going to just follow the crowd. I remember growing up, and rugby was just something that gave me a lot of purpose. I felt like I really, really, really belonged in something. It was not only just the rugby, but it was the gym, sort of my mates being around me. And so I think for me, it's not always like, for some people, the stimulus might be internal or external, but I found that external support in rugby. But it might be like, listen, if you like art, if you like music, dedicate, 2 hours, maybe an hour a day. So 2 hours is quite a lot, because I know rugby are on pitch, but maybe do an hour a day if you like that. If you like language, go and learn it, and find something that gives you purpose that not necessarily everyone around you might do. Because, when things do get tough, and, rugby gets tough, and sometimes it's not easy to go in, even though I love it, but having something that I feel like I can commit to, that is completely different, it's external to my personality. It might be external to my worries. It might be external to, obviously you might have bad days at rugby, but, if I had family stress as a kid growing up, if I felt a bit, insecure about going to school, or like if I was struggling with my work or something at school, as soon as I touched that pitch, it was gone. Like, it disappeared. It didn't matter if, I was trying to get an A-star in my maths, or someone next to me in my team was just trying to get their C to pass and go to college, or I was trying to get into a good sixth form because that's what my mum wanted for me, kind of thing. All of that went out the window. It was about you, the ball, and how much you wanted to play. So yeah, find maybe a different stimulus, just something outside of school that, you can really, really get your teeth into, and then you'll often find that being positive and enjoying yourself outside of there will translate.
That's a great message. And I think finding purpose and meaning is absolutely the key, isn't it? That's a really, really good point. Hard to do, but I think you're right. That's where periods of some kind of introspection and self-reflection, you need to think, what do you like doing? Why do you like doing it? Can you do it a bit more often? Really good. Are you still pretty anti-social media? I know that's quite a bold claim, but this is the quote last time. You said, when you have kids, you will give them brick phones. Do you stand by?
I still think it, honestly, just because even now I'm bad. Like, I will just scroll through social media and like, it's bad. I'm not probably as bad as one of my housemates. I'm not going to name drop him, but like TikTok and Instagram, it's just half an hour goes and you've done nothing, and you've watched 30 reels and you couldn't tell anyone what you've actually watched. Like, it's bad. And I make that joke about give them brick phones, but like, I didn't have any of this stuff growing up, so I don't feel like it's fully ingrained in me because I didn't grow up with it. It kind of evolved as I've kind of got a bit older, and now it's almost like at its peak. Obviously, so I don't know.
I heard it described today on another podcast as sort of modern day drug, the sort of the one of the worst drugs.
Kind of, yeah.
So
no, it's honestly like, it is bad. It is bad. It's just at the time, and you know, you get that little ping on your iPhone now that goes, you spent 3 hours on your phone today, and you're like, what was I actually doing? In fairness, we get, you know, some of our detail and analysis and stuff sent through, so you have that screen time. But then I think like, you go on and it says you spend an hour 20 minutes on Instagram, and I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't tell you what I watched or what I saw.
I have to physically detach myself now. So actually not carry it, like leave it, and then I have that pang of, where's my phone? And then I have to catch myself and go, no, you chose to leave it in your bedroom because you don't want to be looking at it all the time. I will leave that there. Thank you. I was going to ask you a couple more things. One, when you see your peers doing these great things, playing for England, you know, going over to Australia, scoring tries, doing cool stuff, does that motivate you? Do you watch that and go, I want a piece of that? Or, you know, are you just happy for them? How does that make you feel when you see?
No, I think first and foremost, I'm quite happy for them. I think I would just, I'm just sort of very, very happy to say that like, these are like the boys in my team, you know what I mean? Especially as not only as like a player, but I used to watch London Irish growing up, and we had some cool players, but we were always a team that, you know, occasionally we struggled quite a lot, probably, you know, between the Premiership and Championship, and now we're a team that's got boys that are doing exciting things. So as a fan of of the club, sometimes it is quite cool. But for me personally, definitely, I'd love to be a part of, and I feel like that is sort of for me, I think where I can get to is sort of an ambition of mine to be a part of that, you know, exciting, young, but, you know, performance-based and winning London Irish side. I think for the boys that have gone and done it, I mean, one of my housemates, hot topic, Henry Arundel, like, you see him doing all of this stuff, and there's a lot of excitement. But also boys like, I lived with Will Joseph last year. He's a bit of a quiet character, but then like, he gets on the pitch and he's a very good player. But even so, like Russell Collins, Loda, Tom Parton. Now you look at like Tom Pearson, Josh Basham, you know, like guys who are really good rugby players. But also, I think the best part about it, I think, is all of us boys are homegrown. Obviously, we have these incredible international talents, but it's just cool that these guys grow up in Windsor, Reading.
I was going to say, like, that's really cool that you're homegrown. There's that real strong culture of young players that you've come through together. Do you think that's something that London Irish focused on? Do you think it's just a bit of coincidence? Where do you put that on?
Well, I mean, I know bits of the history of the club, and I think it's always been a club that has had a strong academy. And unfortunately, it's had a history of, we've lost a few of those guys, and I think actually now, maybe moving forward, it might be something that they've gone, you know, I'm not a coach, I'm not sitting on the coaches' meetings, but they might have gone, look, we've got an opportunity here to try and do something cool with guys who understand our club. And not to say the guys come in don't. It's just that, you know, a lot of us boys would have been to the games. When we were kids, we'd have watched the games. Like one of the boys, Jack Cook, like there was a picture when he captained us in the Prem last year. There's a picture of him getting led out by one of the captains when he was a mascot at like 5, and then obviously, you know, 15, 20 years later, he's leading the boys up. So it's just stuff like that, you know, it's quite cool to be a part of. Yeah,
that's really cool. Last question. You're 80. You feel like you're 80 right now because you've got a bad back,
Yeah.
knee, gnarled fingers, and your mate is saying a speech about you on your 80th. In brief, how do you want to be remembered when you're 80 years old?
I'm 80 years old. You know what? I'm probably going to say something I think I said last time, but I want the rugby now. It takes so much of your life when you think about it, but I don't want that to be the first thing people say. I want people to say that he was someone that when you needed him, he could like be around. I want to be, you know, hopefully a good father and a good husband. And by the time I get to there, I hope that's the truth. But also like, I would like to sit back and, you know, have my cool caps and cool shirts and stuff. And, you know, from tours I've been on and these great memories. And I would like people to say, you know, I was a good part of, you know, teams and squads they've been in just because you put so much work in. But really, I just want to be remembered as a good guy who was, yeah, able to just kind of be around. And if you needed him, you could just give him a call, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, I needed you to do this again, and you did it. And I think you are brilliant at this. And if any, you know, the people that are out there and listening, you are a fantastic role model to young players. My 9-year-old, I really would love him to get. I mean, I've told you before, and I'll tell you again. He's a really good little rugby player. He will definitely be listening to this because I think not only are you physically obviously a fantastic player, but because you're highly intelligent and you think about what makes the mindset of a champion and what motivates you, I think that sort of thing's going to hold you in really good stead. Wish you well with your recovery from injury, and look forward to seeing you back on the pitch very soon, looking up in the stands and imagining that it's just 12-year-old Chunya watching you play. Yeah, and I'm still waiting for that goose step, 80-meter surge, frog splashdown, try time, and the champagne will come out.
Yeah, like did you see Genji at the weekend against like Bath? Yeah, it's not coming out of me.